summary of our findings. We will open it up to public comment, and we ask people to come to the mics on either side of the room. And you'll have a specific amount of time to give your comments. The board will listen to everything you say. We will not be taking questions tonight. That would perhaps throw us off our timing, but we have a dedicated email site that I will address, that I will display, and all questions we ask you to direct them there. They'll also be given right to the Board of Education. And actually, it's already up there. Okay. So our questions, we ask for you to send them there, and that helps us keep a record of them, and it helps us to forward, answer what we need to answer and forward it on to the Board of Education. So, sometime during the last school year, a variety of different citizens came to the board and asked the Board of Education to start looking at the issue of later school start times. The board listened to the public and then charged the administration with forming a committee to look at this issue. And the committee's charge really is to investigate the challenges and the benefits of this issue.
This is based on recommendations from many health organizations, including the American Medical Association and the Center for Disease Control. And I could name many others, but suffice it to say, there are many who were advocating for later school start times for adolescents. The purpose, we were to engage in a 1 year of study. We were to look at the benefits and challenges of changing these times, and we were to give periodic updates to the Board of Education so they could digest the information throughout the school year. And we have done that. We actually gave our first presentation in December. Our second presentation was in February, and we just this week gave our third and final official presentation and update. Our committee members, so you might say, well, who's on this committee? We reached out to the Parent-Teacher Council and asked them to put a call out for parents who would like to serve on the committee, who had an open mind towards the issue, and we got 6 wonderful parents to serve. We asked for at least 2 to be elementary, and 2 to be middle, and 2 to be high school. And of course, parents have many children, so we got good representation because many of our parents had children at every age. We have 6 teachers on the committee, and we wanted to make sure we represented high school, middle school, and elementary school as well. We have a school psychologist on the committee. 2 of our principals served. The president, and also teacher, president of WHEA, and also our teachers served on our committee. Our department supervisors were important to have their voice on that. 2 of our students, our director of athletics, and me. That was our committee. It was 22 people. We met, I have to count it back up, but I think we met about 8 times this school year. We did our work in subcommittees. We grouped ourselves into, every committee member served on 2 different subcommittees, and we identified them and gave them an inquiry question to explore. And they did, I want to publicly thank them because, of course, it's all volunteer work, and they were really thoughtful about the work. They contributed quite a bit and brought a lot of perspective and good voice to the discussions. I won't read the slides to you, but I'll give you a moment to take in. There were 8 altogether. Here are the first 4 that we looked at. The next 4 committees, looking at professional learning, transportation, the impact on the town itself, and the athletic program. And then we grouped them into 3 presentations to the board. I'd like to share with you some of our findings of what we presented to the board, and I'm going to also send you or share with you a link where you can see all of our written reports, as well as all of the research articles we read, as well as the presentations that we sat with and through with people who have much more expertise in the field than we do. So firstly, the sleep research was very clear. These organizations support a later school start time for adolescents. Our committee read through that to increase their knowledge and understanding of the issue. On this topic, we also had Dr. Susan Ruman-Gold present to us, who is an expert in this area, and Dr. Sarah Raskin. We also invited Kevin Sullivan. You might know former Mayor Kevin Sullivan and former state senator and now Department of Revenue Collection, who worked on this issue back in the early 2000s. It was considered at the state level. This was considered as a possible piece of legislation, and Kevin Sullivan came and gave us some background on how the efforts went at that time. But this was, during our first meeting, we had 3 presentations, and those are available on our website as well. In lessons learned, we looked at Wilton, Connecticut, who has had this for 15 years. They're at 820. They've worked out most of their issues, and they are very happy with their start time. We also went to Newtown, Connecticut, who just this year went from 7:20 to 8 o'clock. And they feel that they're having a successful first year of implementation. They've made some adjustments. There are some things still to be worked out, but overall they are pleased. We also called Greenwich and spoke with many people there and kept up with the news from Greenwich. Greenwich has had a more difficult implementation time. You might note it. They chose a later time, but they've had a more difficult implementation with athletics, lots of students being released early and missing class. They've had some transportation challenges. They've had to consider whether they'll keep all their athletic teams or all the levels of their athletic teams. So a little bit more of a challenge there. Academic benefits, our committee read many reports, but I have to be honest, we can't begin to read all the research that's out there. There's just simply thousands of articles. But we did ask we asked the New England, the REL, which is the Regional Education Lab for Northeast and the Islands, to send some research studies for us. And they sent us, I think, 12. We read all of them, and then we read the RAND study and many others, and we compiled all of that. And what we found in academic benefits is there's certainly many studies that say there are academic benefits, and they cited attendance increases, grade increases. We also found some studies that said it was less consistent information or that some early benefits were not maintained. One of the things that stuck really with us is we asked Wilton the question if they saw academic benefits, because we thought that would be a great question for Wilton since they've done it for 15 years. And it was an interesting answer. They told us that they never did it. They never made the change because of academic benefits. They thought there was good reason to make the change regardless. They're a high-performing district, and they haven't, that was not what they were seeking in the change, and they have not studied it. So can't really report what happened in Wilton because of that. But it was an interesting perspective to hear. In athletics, we did come across some articles citing improvements in performance and some decreases in injury, and Dr. Ruben-Gold had talked about that at our presentation. We did see many challenges in the early dismissal times for athletes. Athletic Director Jason Siegel and I looked at all of the current schedule that we have, and we applied a 30-minute and a 60-minute delay in the end of the day to calculate, or at least try to calculate, if everything else was kept consistent from this year, how many times we would be releasing our teachers and our students to participate in athletics. And the number is somewhat high, but we applied exactly the same parameters. We may be able to seek some changes in our schedule or ask for cooperation from other districts. It's just an unknown at this point if other districts would cooperate with us, if they'd be able to move to a later end time, and that would allow us to put games later. Our transportation committee on the benefits is our major 3-tier portion of our system, which 3-tier means there's an elementary run, a middle school run, and a high school run with 30 minutes in between. That major portion for the public schools seems as though we can adjust to that with route changes, but without major costs. We do have an outside question about the private school transportation. We do share transportation costs with the town to get children to private school. And that's an unknown for us at this time, if we will be able to devise a schedule that will work for everyone. If we weren't able to, we may be absorbing the cost of about 8 to 9 buses on the board side and possibly on the town side, which is a significant cost. The town of West Hartford, we went out to daycares and recreation groups and leisure services, and the majority of their response to us was, until you have more specific times, we can't exactly tell you what the impact will be, but when you do get closer, please involve us and let us know. We will have to make adjustments, but they couldn't really give us too much feedback yet without more specifics. In professional learning, we think it would just adjust later. There was some discussion on should it move into the morning. There is a concern about trying to separate our teachers into morning groups and afternoon groups. That would hurt our K-12 efforts to do work. We need to meet together at times as a K-12 department. For instance, think about your music teachers, your phys ed teachers. They do work together from K through 12. And it's going to be a challenge to separate them. And finally, we had a stakeholder impact group, and you're part of it, being here tonight. We have a website, and I'll show it to you in a minute. We have a dedicated email address. We've gotten about 30 emails to the email address so far. We sent letters through the school we sent updates to the school newsletters each month, actually twice a month. We asked our principals to discuss this at faculty meetings and at PTO meetings. Met with the Parent-Teacher Council. We have had great coverage from the Current and the West Hartford, the town of West Hartford Life, and we've had press coverage from the Current and, from television as well. So we're hoping everyone has heard about our committee. We have a stakeholder survey that's out now. Went out to high school and elementary school on April 18th. Parents. If it hasn't gone out to middle school by this week, it will go out by tomorrow or Monday to middle school parents. And then we have you all here with us tonight to provide your comments. With that being said, if you would like to access more information, we have a dedicated website. You would go to the West Hartford Public Schools page and you would click on the Board of Education tab, and under that is the Rethinking School Start Time page. I've circled a couple of the places where you can find all of our research articles and our presentations. Dr. Ruben Gold provided us, her presentation is available. Dr. Sarah Raskin's presentation is available. Kevin Sullivan's, as well as all of our studies, the RAND study, and all of the updates to the Board of Education are available there. So, I did not mean to do that. Okay. So we wanted to provide plenty of time for people to comment, to speak with our Board of Education tonight. As I mentioned earlier, we won't take questions at this time, but we will certainly listen to what people have to say. And what we were going to ask people to do is come to either mic. We'll ask people to adhere to a 3-minute time frame. I have 2 of our committee members who are going to help us with that. So I'll ask them to come up so they can be seen. What they'll do is at about 2.5 minutes, they will flash a yellow piece of paper so you know, okay, you're getting near your end of your time. And at 3 minutes, they'll flash a red piece of paper and ask you to wrap up your final comments. So with that being said, if anyone would like to address the committee members or the board, we're all here for you tonight. Please just come to one of the microphones, and love to hear what you have to say about this important issue.
Hello. Move it. Wow. That's good enough. 2 microphones. Good evening. My name is Holly Diodario. I am a teacher at Conard High School. I've been in the district for 15 years now. I'm in the math department. I taught at Cedric for 6 years, and I've been at Conard for 9. I'd like to speak to you this evening on more as a coach and the potential implications this would have also as a teacher. So I coach two sports right now. I coach freshman field hockey in the fall as well as JV softball in the spring. So that would be 2 seasons where I'm not in my classroom doing my original job. When we talk about leaving school early, and again, some of this might be misinformation, but my understanding was it would be an hour difference. So that means I would be leaving and not teaching my 8th period class, sometimes part of my 7th period class. So if we take just the last 2 weeks, for example, I had 8 out of 10 days where I had a game. So now I'm not in my classroom teaching what happens to be my lowest level, neediest students 8 out of the last 10 days, leaving them in the hands of a substitute, which is a huge concern, especially in a class like math, because for the most part, the substitutes won't be able to do what I do. The other issue with that is sub-coverage. So Conard, and I don't know about other schools, have a difficult time even covering the classes as it is, let alone now adding this as an additional burden. In the math department alone, we have 4 coaches, 2 of us do 2 out of 3 seasons. So that's a huge impact to try and cover it, let alone pay for it with this tight budget year that we currently have going on. On the other side of that, besides me not teaching my class, I now worry about my student athletes. So again, my athletes on my softball team are now being pulled out of their 8th period or part of their 7th period class. Again, 8 out of the last 10 days, and that means they are still responsible for that material. Anytime they miss class for a field trip, things like that, we say they're still responsible for that material. So how are they going to get that learning on their own? They don't necessarily have the time to be going and meeting with their teachers. That's an extra burden on the teachers. Well, you missed class because you had a game. You now have to go during your lunch study hall. Teachers are not necessarily going to want to reteach every single time these kids are missing classes. That I don't think is fair. The other issue that, again, is a potential thing coming up is, are there contractual obligations? So right now, 7th period is my lunch. If I'm missing my lunch or my prep period, is that a potential contractual obligation? So again, I strongly implore you to really think about this. I understand there are benefits, but to me, the downsides far outweigh the potential benefits to our students. Thank you.
I'm not sure I can reach this. Okay. My name is Susan Gilmore. I live in the Morley District on Auburn Road. I'm also an English professor at Central Connecticut State. Thank you for listening tonight. Thanks to the committee for their work. I'm going to read this to keep it short. My youngest daughter will graduate from Hall High School this June. Any changes to start times will be too late for my children. So I'm here on behalf of West Hartford's children and Common Sense. All the science points to the essential benefits of later school start times for our teens. The current start times turned my bright, motivated, confident kids into anxious, exhausted, coffee-drinking zombies. I understand concerns about funding, athletics, and other factors, but later start times will enable our teenagers to feel better and learn better. This is about ensuring our students' health and educational well-being. What else could be more important? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Grossman. I have 3 children here in town with my husband. I'm on Craigmore Road. We are Morley School District, but we magnet to Charter Oak Elementary School. We are both in very strong support of later school start times, especially for high school students, even though our children are still in elementary school. I ask this committee and the board, and maybe more importantly, our community writ large, and especially those who oppose looking at later start times, to really maybe recalibrate the lens through which you're looking at this question, which is to say that all of our individual anecdotal stories are important and they're a part of this process, and you should absolutely hear them, but they are at the ground level. At the 15,000-foot level are the questions that you were getting out in your survey, how this will impact buses and teachers and all those other components that we have to consider and plan for as a town. Also important to understand and be able to plan for that. And some public policy making can happen at that level. Do you put 3 or 4 parking spots in? I don't know. You take a look at all of those different issues, you weigh them basically evenly, and you make the best decision. This issue has a 30,000-foot question. It has a deeper question that holds far more weight than anything else in the middle, and that is, fundamentally, is our current school schedule hurting the physical and emotional well-being of our children? And the answer is yes, overwhelmingly, unanimously, yes. And so are we able to do something about it? And the answer is also yes. So thank you for the time and energy you're putting into this question, because we can fix it. Knowing what we know now, we'd never take a warning label off a pack of cigarettes. You wouldn't go get a pregnant lady drunk. You wouldn't put your kids in a car without a seatbelt. Knowing what we know now about the physiological development of our children, and especially our teens, it is our shared responsibility to support policies that no longer inadvertently, but nonetheless hurt our children. So I hope you will make the decision to go forward with changing the start times. I hope that this is a crystallizing point for you, really the heart of the matter, to be able to explain to people who may not agree with this, that this decision was made with the best interest of our children's health and safety in mind, and let all the ugly transition pieces fall where they may, because they will. So thank you again for your time and all the time you took away from your families to study this issue.
Hi, my name is Pam Thomas. I live on Mohawk Drive. I have 4 kids. One graduated in 2016. I have a junior at Hall, an 8th grader at, sorry, I'm out of breath from mowing my lawn. An 8th grader at KP and my 3rd grader at Aiken. I am actually against the later start times. I don't see it as necessary. I realize that there are a lot of studies, but I don't think all kids are the same. And I think you have to look at, and I'm speaking from my own experience and others like me, I am a morning person. I am up first thing in the morning, and I was in high school without any trouble, and I really enjoyed getting out early. And where I see the biggest impacts are kids that do more than one activity. So my son is both an athlete and he's in music programs. For just one night a week, 3 seasons of sports, he doesn't get home until 5 p.m. from sports and has to be back at school for a cappella practice an hour later. You move school an hour later, that takes that away. He just got a part-time job because he wants to have money to pay for his running shoes and the athletic stuff that he needs for his sport. You're going to cut into the time that's allowed for that. And I will tell you that when he was in middle school, he was up until 1 a.m. most nights on computers or whatever. Being an athlete was the thing that improved his health. When he got to high school, he started running, and he sleeps better. He's in bed at 9 or 9:30 every night. Homework is done. He's an A student, AP classes, honors classes. So it can be done, and I think that kids are going to lose out on the ability to do multiple activities if you increase that. They're going to lose out on the opportunity to get part-time jobs, which is good for them. And there's a cost. There's the story of the transportation I read today, where if the private schools, I mean, it could be a $500,000 cost. And when you've got a town that is complaining about the taxes now, how do we bear the burden of that cost to change these start times? So thank you for your time.
Good evening. I am Dr. Susan Rubman Gold. I live on Timrod Lane in West Hartford. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am boarded in behavioral sleep medicine. I'm the director of behavioral sleep medicine at the Hospital Central Connecticut. I'm an assistant clinical professor at Yale in the School of Medicine in the Department of Psychiatry, and I've been practicing in the field of sleep medicine for 27 years. I want to say that there is an impressively robust science surrounding this topic, and the science is not in debate at all. I want to say that again, the science and the data are not in debate. It is extraordinarily rare in the medical community that there is complete consensus, but we have it here. High school should not start before 8:30 a.m. In the behavioral economic literature, in the medical literature, in the psychiatric literature, what is debated is the issue of implementation, how and when we should start schools at 8:30. But the decision of whether to implement a later school start time is simply not debated. Starting high school at 7:30 asks our students to function at a time that their brains are biologically in sleep mode. Our students can certainly walk and talk, but there are far-reaching negative and profound health and learning consequences that go way beyond sleepiness in the classroom that result from early start times. You've heard some of those issues alluded to in a way that doesn't actually give you a greater understanding of what's going on, and I would encourage you to evaluate the literature more thoroughly. Last April, I was a participant at the first National Adolescent Sleep, Health, and School Start Time Conference, and the takeaway from that meeting is that this is not a school start time issue. This is a public health issue, and it's helpful to navigate the discussion and the conversation of this topic from that perspective. I truly appreciate the work of the School Start Time Committee. I genuinely believe that you guys have worked so hard to evaluate this topic. There are 12,000 articles devoted to this topic. I appreciate that you have tried to digest the literature, but it's not fair to ask somebody who is not an expert in this field to digest all that literature and come to a conclusion. I am concerned that the crux of the decision-making for West Hartford will rest on personal opinion or the idea that making change is hard or inconvenient or will disrupt the status quo and not focus on the long-term consequences of a decision not to delay start times. Of course, there are challenges, but creative and cooperative problem solving from all stakeholders can yield solutions that can satisfy most of the concerns that are typically generated from these conversations. Problems in this arena are solvable. West Hartford prides itself on being leaders in the region. We pride ourselves on our town and specifically on our school system. We have the opportunity to lead and make the change to take better care of our kids. To do anything less is a disservice to our students and to our town.
My name is Jane Robinson. I live on Ledyard Road. You've heard from me before, but I just wanted to come up and say once again that I am in support of changing the school start times. I have kids that are in very big gap in age. I started at Halls High School about 9 years ago with a kid, and I will be there for another 3 years as I have a freshman there now. I've watched kids who were morning people become, oh my God, not morning people, and now I've seen them come out the other side. So it's something that I can't change. I feel terrible every single morning I wake up my son. He screams at me, and this is a kid who is not like that. He was my good time kid. And he screams at me every morning, I can't do this, Mom, I can't do this. I can't get food into a kid who's underweight in the morning because he can't do anything other than roll down the stairs. His shoes are untied, his hair is unkept. I hand him a cup of coffee, which is totally inappropriate for a kid who weighs 99 pounds, but I gotta get something in him because I put half whole milk in it, because at least he'll take something. And it's just devastating, and I feel like I'm a party to child abuse, and if he weren't so far along, I might consider homeschooling, but now he's actually too smart for me. So I can't do that. So I need those math teachers and those other caregivers to continue doing what they did for my first 2 kids. I just wish they could do it a little bit later. So thank you so much for this consideration, and good luck with this very difficult process.
Hi, my name is Mary Fleischle, and I live at 28 Brunswick in West Hartford. And you've heard me speak before, and I swore I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I can't help myself because I feel so strongly about this issue. I agree it's a public health issue, and I realize there are some kids who are able to get up early in the morning, and I thought I had one of those kids. He was always up at 6 in the morning, and happy-go-lucky kid, even on a Saturday, always up at 6 a.m. He's now, I'm dragging him out of bed, and, people blame parents for, you let them be on their cell phones, they're up late at night. I take his phone away. I mean, he just can't fall asleep. There really is something to the science of later circadian rhythms for teenage brains. And yes, he will have a different kind of brain when he's an adult going to work. So I don't think he needs to suffer and get up early to get used to it for later work, because his brain will evolve, and there's lots of research that will show that. And it's so hard for me to have to wake up my kids every morning and have them suffer through this. And I think a lot of the logistics are awful, and it'll be difficult, and change is hard, and I really appreciate all the hard work of this committee looking into all of the challenges so that we'll be prepared if we do make the change. But they're just that, they're logistics. So balance the logistics with public health, and you make your decision. And I think one thing that we can reflect on is even Greenwich, that is having issues with implementation. In the article I read, they aren't planning on moving start times back. So that should tell you a lot. So even if there are challenges, how many school districts have said, this is just awful, let's go back to early start times? I don't know of a single one, other than Boston, which rolled it out in a horrible way and upset elementary students, but that's another point. So, as long as we're prepared and organized in how we roll it out, the way I think West Hartford will be, I don't see that being an issue, and I don't see a lot of school districts saying, yes, let's start earlier again, that was so awesome. So I hope you think about that and consider that when you make your decision, and I know change is awful and hard, but I think our kids are worth it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jay Trudeau, and I live on Leonard Road here in West Hartford. I have two daughters, one at Bugby Elementary and one at King Philip Middle School. I got this lovely sticker, so clearly I'm in support of a later school start time. There are two questions in the scope that the committee was charged with. One was the challenges and one was the benefits. One of those questions has a very clear answer. It is a benefit to move school times to be later. This is a question that has been asked and empirically answered. Every piece of research that I have read or am aware of says that yes, this benefits our children's well-being. Are there challenges? Yes, there are. But they are logistical challenges. They are challenges that can be addressed by the parents, by the teachers. Not all of them are easy. Some of them will be difficult. Some of them may even conceivably be expensive. But is that an expense that we as a community are willing to bear for the well-being of our children? And I certainly hope that the answer to that is yes.
My name is Kate Critton. I live on Craigmore Road, and I'm currently in 7th grade. And so I used to be the first person awake in my house. I would be the first person. I would bounce around waiting for everybody else to wake up. But recently, it's been harder and harder to wake up. So I'll be in bed at like 9:30, but I won't be able to sleep until 10:30 or 11. And then when I have to wake up at 6:30 in the morning, I don't want to be awake, but I have to be awake because I have to go to school. And so I think that I understand that there are a lot of other issues with this. So there's like athletics, other activities, transportation, but I think that the issue is a little bit more important than those possible issues. So I really think that it would be just better if it were delayed as opposed to staying the way it is.
Good evening. My name is Jenny Fisher. I have a son in 2nd grade at Wolcott, and I have two other children who are not in school quite yet. Looking through all the research, and as I'm reading through it, I see the benefits of the later school start times. It's more of a question, which I know you can't answer, but I just want to make sure that there's very limited research at this time that I've been able to find. Maybe someone could guide me in the right direction about starting elementary school early. So I wonder if we're going to find out in years to come that really no students are ready to learn at such an early time. So I just want to make sure, and I know it hasn't been said that elementary school would then take the place of starting at the high school time, but I just want us to be cautious of not making that swap, because I think anyone starting that early, we're going to learn to find that they're not ready to learn. So I know that there is information out there that might say that younger children naturally get up earlier, but there still isn't that research out there about the academic side of them being in school that early. So just want to make sure that we're conscientious of that and not swapping out one problem and creating another. Just prefer my children not to be the guinea pigs of that study. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Ann Donovan. I live at 50 Leonard Road. I'm a building TA at Duffy Elementary School. And to your point, I'm wondering about switching out one problem for another. There are so many populations that have to be taken into consideration with making a change of this magnitude. We have a Kids Link program at Duffy that is hugely popular, not just with Duffy students, but other elementary kids coming into that. So I know the committee has worked hard in gathering this information, and I appreciate that. It's going to be a tough decision. I, for one, am not for changing start times. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Natasha Valdez-Palzado, and I live at 81 Sunset Farm Road. My children go to Walcott. I'm quite old now, but I still remember being in high school and having a hard time getting up in the morning. I do remember not being able to fall asleep until 11 or 12, thinking I was just a night owl. That's the way I was. I would get most of my homework done late. Even if we had meets or anything that I had for after-school events, it never really affected me in the evening. It always affected me in the morning. I think that a later start time would be great. I did see on the news something about maybe starting the elementary school even later at 9, and I just want to take into consideration any working families where that might cause some problems for those families having to pay more money for more before school care. And I understand not wanting to swap, but I think that consolidating buses, there's a lot of buses in West Hartford that aren't full, figuring out where bus routes might be able to be consolidated, maybe freeing up some other buses so then those buses would be available so we wouldn't have to spend as much money on the bus issues. Maybe only starting kids 10 minutes earlier for the other elementary and middle school. There's just so many other options that I think we can look into actually having this happen in a very organized manner, as somebody else said earlier. And I just want to take into consideration the whole aspect of elementary school starting later. Those are the children that need more supervision, will need more care, will cost more money, when high schoolers hopefully are learning to be more independent and might be able to get themselves, or at least on the bus on their own, a little easier. Thank you.
My name is Laura Harker. I live at North Steel Road in West Hartford. I am the parent of a recent Hall graduate, a current high school junior, as well as a 7th grade daughter. I first of all commend the Board of Ed for taking so much time to investigate and engaging many different groups and all that. I speak my own personal experience. I started high school at 7:30, almost 30 years ago, and I don't remember it being an issue. I've now gone through it now with the second teenager, and for their own personal experience, it's fine. They get themselves up, they get themselves to school on time, they're never tardy. I have read a lot of the science, and I understand it. And I agree with it. I worry, just from personal experience, I know for my high schoolers, for them, mental health and anxiety would be caused by having to leave class multiple times a week over a period of many months. That would cause my non-anxious, non-stressed kids to become anxious and to become stressed. I just know from my boys have always had AP classes as juniors and seniors, 8th period. To miss that class multiple times a week over many months would be impossible. I know from our high schools that's a very common thing to have those kind of classes last period of the day. So for me, that's a big, without coming to some satisfactory thing where that wouldn't be an issue, it would be hard for me to support the change.
Hi, I'm Morgan Trudeau. I live on Leonard, and I'm currently a 7th grader at KP Middle School. Personally, I find it very hard to wake up in the mornings, especially when it's winter, or autumn, which is more than half of the time we spend in school. So I find myself waking up at 7 and then ending up staying in bed till 7:05, which is the maximum limit I can actually stay in bed without missing my bus. Personally, I'm in a select ensemble that I normally don't get home till 4:20, 4:30 even, and I do want a later school time, but I don't know how that would affect the time I have for my select ensemble and the time I have for classwork and homework. Even with all the stuff I have, we do take field trips, like Chocolate Cafe, Great East Festival, that we have to go through and take time out of our class periods, which is work I have to make up on my own time. However, if we're starting a new unit or anything, my teachers have to take time out of their free time or prep time or lunch to teach me that unit, whereas with the time we have now, I face the same problems, but I find it easier to wake up now than ever with the sun rising. Thank you.
Well, we certainly want to give everyone as much time and opportunity to speak. We have the board members here with us, and they are all ears. So if there's any final comments that anyone would like to make, certainly are a little bit ahead of what I expected. I thought we might go right till 8:30, but that's always a good time. So, last call maybe? Yes, feel free.
Callan Serdechny, I've spoken before. I'm at 115 Grennan Road. I just wanted to emphasize again, my senior son, almost graduating. It's been a world of difference this year for him to start second period. He was able to adjust his classes. Wonderful, like never before. And he's looking forward to college where he can go in even later than 8 o'clock, 8:30. But I just want to remind everybody that the purpose of our education is for all children. Yes, athletes will be affected. I did athletics and music and everything at Conard too. And my sons have been athletes. Yes, athletics and after-school activities will be affected, but the purpose of our education is for all the children and the health of all the children, the public safety of all the children, public health. And so I just want to remind everyone of that purpose. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Natalie Ford. I live at 25 Colonial Street, West Hartford. I'm a Wolcott parent. I have a 5th grader who's going to transition into 6th grade next year. She is my early morning riser, but I've seen her sleep changing where she's maybe sleeping a little bit later than she normally would. I also have a 3rd grader who has a hard time going to bed and has a hard time waking up in the morning. So getting her to school is a challenge sometimes, but we do it. My concern, I understand the benefits of sleep, and if there was a way we can make everyone happy, that would be great. I want to take into consideration, or have everyone take into consideration, working parents who maybe drop off kids. This will make things difficult. Working parents who maybe do what they can, but maybe cannot afford to have like after school care, and like strongly, I just like them to be taken into consideration with regards to the start time, and hopefully we can all find something that's beneficial for all of us. So, thanks. Hello, my name is Jessica Cabanillas. I live on Brookmore Road. I first want to thank you for your public service and exploring this idea. It sounds like the science is clear, that there are certainly benefits for individuals who are going to be starting high school to sleep in a little bit and maximize their learning capacity. My question is more about if this science is clear and we've seen communities benefit from the transition, maybe this is something that should be explored at a state level. I know there are certain contractual requirements by, maybe shortening the school days and maybe extending it so that there's opportunity for kids to attend athletics and also have work experience as well. I know that opens up a whole can of worms, but I just hope that people are being creative and really thinking about this on a state level too, because there may be laws that require a certain number of days or a certain number of hours, but if everyone sees the benefits of it, then perhaps there can be change at the state level and all communities and all students can benefit. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Friedman, and I live on Clifton Avenue. I have a hard time doing public speaking, so this is a big deal for me. But I just want to reiterate that sort of the public health impact, that the higher questions that we're dealing with, there are certainly a lot of challenges and a lot of logistical things that would need to be worked out. And certainly I can think of, and when I was taking the survey, I kept thinking, well, yes, this would impact me or this would affect me, but I would make a change. I would make it work. It's worth it to me, and it's to see the benefits that the kids that our kids would reap from having a start time that matched their physiology better. So, thank you.
But I think, do we see a last call? No, that's a no. Okay, just checking. Well, first of all, I want to thank, I think from the committee's happy to hear from you. We're all really anxious to hear what the community is saying, and I know the board is very anxious to get input. So for all of you who came out tonight, it's great to hear all the different perspectives on every side. We thank you for your time. Please fill out your surveys if you have not. I do know middle school parents may be getting them a little bit later, but if you don't have them by tomorrow, I would call into your middle school and ask them. I know they were trying to finish up their school climate survey, and that was the reason they were a little delayed. But everyone else should have them. Thank you for your time, and we will be presenting the results of that survey on June 5th at the board meeting, and we'll get even more community input. Have a great night.